I'm live now. That way you don't say some crazy shit.
What?
That way you don't say some crazy-ish.
Yeah. You super live now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Where's the copyright for this? All right. All right. You're here live. Let me know when you're in, though. If I open my doors to a classroom, I don't just immediately start talking to myself. So let me know who's there. I'll put some links. Be serious. All right. Got some links for everybody. Not just my own column, but I added 2 articles from students. Saeem wrote a very valid article. And Powerborn added on with a plus lesson. So good stuff on the site right now. All right, peace, Jarrell. Did you get? I sent you an email, Jarrell. That was more personal add-ons that you asked. So that's why I didn't think of reviewing that in the classroom. That's not really. That was just for you. I hope it added on and stuff. Letting the class fill in. Oh, that's peace. And again, a lot of the questions that Jerome asked me is mainly about athletics and his own training, and generally for everyone, it's always a thing you have to monitor yourself, take into account certain things and try new things. Certain things work, certain things don't. You know what I mean? Give you an example. In my training, I had to make an entire indoor training for rain and snow and all that. So I never liked doing burpees, but they just seem to tire you out though, but not really add on very well. What I figured out was for myself was that when I use burpees to overload other activities, they really worked out. You know what I mean? So if I was doing a very a 20-minute jump rope, you know, as fast as possible with certain goals, because I have a jump rope with, that counts the loops, and so it's pretty intense. And I try to get those loops in a set amount of time before that set amount of time lapses. That really works a lot. But then when I added an amount of burpees before and after these sets of jump rope and other things, that's when I started to really see the benefit. You know, so you know, in your physical in your physical training, you know, these are the things that you want to take note of. You know, definitely the things you want to take note of. You know, and that's why sometimes, you know, they always talk about journals for, you know, whether you're training, if you know, have a journal or whatever. But sometimes a journal isn't really just for what you're eating though, but also for your own, you know, how are you doing though? How is your training going? Um, what are the things that are working for you? You know, what do you need to see more of? What do you want more benefits from? You know what I mean? You know, so you know, this is what you're doing, and all of that goes into that. You know, right? So within every week though, there's always things that you do well, things that you don't. You know, and in your training though, you always have to take gauge of your sleep, how much sleep you need, and how much sleep you're actually getting. You know what I mean? Also, is the quality sleep. You know what I mean? If you go past your, let's say, if you're awake too long in the day, um, but you still get your 8 hours, it's still not the ideal 8 hours that you would want. You know, because making up for stuff. You know, so these are things to take note of. You know, because the frustration in trying to be with the goals of training, whether they get in shape, whether they be able to engage in a certain activity greater. And then the third, you know, to look good. Those results can be frustrating. You know what I mean? So you have to be able to remember all of the factors that go into it. It's not just training. You know what I mean? It could be training time, and you know, it could be that you know you've diluted the quality of the training. You know, all of these things, you know, are to be taken into account. You know. All right, so I want to start off with people asking some questions and stuff about anything. Um, if you anything, if you reviewed the last couple of classes, I really went into 1 to 14 a lot. I might have some other things to say about it. You know, we could talk about that forever, right? But you let me know. That way I can gauge where we need to go, where we ought to go. That is a very good question. Peace to Asiatic God Mathematics, God C, YZU, 793rd. Quatis, peace. Good question, Asiatic God. Does the word Negro come from Necro, meaning dead? It's mainly from the word in Spanish, negro, which negro means black, you know what I mean? Just as the color black, you know, like just identifying the shade. And I have never researched and never seen anywhere that the roots of the word negro, as it's used in Spanish, comes from dead. Never seen that, you know. So I couldn't, you know, I definitely couldn't say that. You know what I mean? It's a good question. Yeah, that's it's a really good it's really good. You know, I'm not an expert in any kind of way on the etymology of Spanish and Latin, you know, but a lot of the Spanish doesn't come from the Greek roots, you know, and the necro is a Greek root, you know, meaning dead, as you pointed out. So, you know what I mean? Well, I would imagine you'd have a hard time to do it in any language, right, Godsi? It isn't easy. It's a daunting task. I know Infinite Mind has made progress greatly in translating the lessons, so I am pretty sure that he has translated the the supreme alphabet in Spanish, because I know he's done much more than that. You know, I have to look into it though to see if he gave me a copy of everything he's done. I was kind of waiting for him to complete the whole task. You know, it's not just about translating it, you know, word for word, but also retaining the meaning. Retaining the meaning, though, in a set of lessons, literature, writings that have a lot of grammar errors to begin with. So there's already grammar flaws in it, and then there's also grammar insinuations or flaws that we want to preserve. You know what I mean? Like the Wisdom Build Degree, there's a lot of grammar flaws in there. Asiatic God Mathematics, you said my dad is Mexican, my mother is black. I've experienced a lot of racism from Mexicans who like to use the N-word, but I understand they were of the Spaniard mindset. Oh, you know, I don't think that. So I'm assuming that you don't really know Spanish very well. You know what I'm saying? Um, like a lot of languages, though, the way someone could be called nigger or negro, both could be wildly offensive. More often with nigger, but if someone is calling you, you know, negro, that doesn't always mean it is endearing either, you know. So a lot of it has to do with context, and a lot of it though could cause a paranoia for you. So that's why I would suggest that you don't worry about it too much. You know what I mean? And mayata is definitely not a term of endearment, though. You know what I mean? That's something that Mexicans say, though. You know, it's Puerto Ricans, we don't say that, and I've never heard a Dominican say that. You know, but interesting thing though, how we deal with it though. You know what I'm saying? I have encountered so many students. You want to know a large percentage of students that do not deal with the knowledge I'll tell you right now, Asiatic God mathematics. Because I don't know your story. You know what I'm saying? And so I just leave this out as food for thought. Food for thought for anybody listening. Food for thought because there are certain individuals that this will hit home because they know I'm talking about them or it relates to them. But some of the people that have not dealt with this knowledge of self, you know, given the usual excuses that I see those over there and they deal with it and they don't really uphold it the way I think it ought to be. You know what I mean? Which wouldn't that imply that it's a banner and it's an ethos that you respect, but you need others to uphold the banner correctly. That's weird. You know what I mean? But a lot of people that don't deal with this knowledge is often because they're mixed, because they're light skinned. And a lot of times, though, those mixtures aren't just a black and white mixture, as you, Asiatic God mathematics, are a mixture of, I'm assuming, African American and Mexican. And so the quest for self-identification is not based on what you're going to do, not based on who you actually are. It certainly doesn't give a damn about who everybody else is. It just deals with a definition that can separate you from them and give a definitive reason why them and anyone even close to them will be inferior. You see? And this is why you got to be careful when you deal with the knowledge of self. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say that black and brown, that they're racist like, you know, anybody else could be, you know? You know, that they're not racist like anyone else can be. I don't think that's possible. But they can react bigoted, you know, just to use different words here, you know, to say kind of like the nuance of things, you know what I mean? And one of the things I see is, and I'm thinking of Black Mexican because I know a lot of Black Mexican brothers, you know what I mean? I had very early experiences though with, you know, students that I knew that were from gangs out in LA, and having me teach at the school was one of the greatest oddities they've ever seen. You know what I'm saying? Right? It's thinking more like, you can't be a so-called Puerto Rican or anything like that, even though they don't know about Puerto Ricans, some kind of Latino brown brother, because that doesn't make sense. You know, you got to be mixed, like a black and white combo. You know what I mean? I don't have any direct cracker though. You know, all those combinations are from the mixed up Spaniards already. But I would say this knowledge of self oftentimes isn't good enough for people because it doesn't come though with the ability to slay. It doesn't come to make a border of the world where people say, look, I love all people. You know, I love all the black diaspora though, but keep it out of the area for me. It's just us here, you know? And these are big problems I've had, you know what I'm saying? And I just put this on the record here. This is a major problem that I had in the writings of, let me get the name. My own dismissals. Let me forget the name of the damn book. You know, one of the earliest 5%ers, though, I'm not going to call him an elder or anything like that. I really didn't disagree with much of what he said. Although I never took the chance, I never had the chance to build with him, though. And partly was that because I knew it would just be an argument, you know what I mean? And I had enough elders that I built with. But I never liked any of the things, nearly 100% of the things that Abu Shahi would write. He would often write like, this knowledge itself is really for African Americans, though, and everyone else need not apply. If you're of the black diaspora, though, maybe you could get in, though, get in where you fit in, though, and blend in. But it's really not your thing. You'll have to blend in, you know. So if you're, I don't know, dark Asian, you know, Jamaican, Ghanaian, you know what I mean? You get in, and if you're light like me and you're Puerto Rican, you're definitely, you know, I don't know what the hell you're doing here. And that's not the knowledge itself. It's not what it means, because it doesn't give a damn about your feelings, about who's going to understand your problems. You know what I mean? It really doesn't give a damn. So when you have the knowledge itself, it's a blessing to be the original man from two distinct cultures. You know what I mean? And again, this is not for you, Asiatic God mathematics, though. You're just provoking a lot of thoughts that I know and that I have from many people that share your, you know, your ethnic makeup. You know, so I just want to throw that out there. You know what I mean? And when you say that it was a problem, the racism from Mexicans in the 80s, as opposed, I mean, excuse me, in the 90s or earlier, as opposed to it is now, that may not be because it's lessened. It may be because you have been more of an adult and less approachable with the nonsense. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't say that there's less people that are likely to love Puerto Ricans as part of this black diaspora. You know what I mean? Simply off the basis of the way that I'm treated, though. I think it was one of the worst things if I, Sunez, use the way I'm treated as a barometer of people in general. You know what I mean? The more works that, for say, I would put out there and the more things that I would do, people would want to be down, blood suck, be part of the magnetic, whatever it is. I don't know. But the point being, though, is that I would only say that it has because I've been around a lot of people. And that's part of the work as a journalist, as a historian, and things like that. So I've been in it in ciphers that I normally would not be in, you know? In other words, when you make judgments, and you, again, rhetorically, not anyone particularly, I'm saying this as a rule to all of you. When you make judgments about the way you're treated and stuff, please don't put so much emphasis on them. You know what I mean? Look at them like as a particular case study, you know? Let's say, for instance, right? And I use Asiatic God mathematics, right? Because he got a powerful name. So I'm assuming that he, you know, keeps his training up, right? And let's say he's grown up as a man, and, you know, he's brolic. Nobody's tested him. All of a sudden, though, what people find racist and what people are experiencing as racism is totally different than someone else that looks like they could get picked on. You know what I mean? So it's all types of factors. You know what I mean? All types of factors. You know what I mean? So these are things to think about. You know what I mean? These are things to do the knowledge to, you know. And Asiatic God mathematics, you said, experience prejudice from darker blacks as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what I mean? I absolutely see how that could happen. You know what I mean? I would say this, though. It's a blessing because there's so much to learn from the other cultures. And I'll tell you this, though. Let me tell you one thing about the Mexicans. Mexicans don't share any of their culture. And they don't even give you the scoop on who's good musically. You know what I mean? You know, like if you're trying to find out about their music, like, and I'm not talking about, you know, mariachi that's played once you get off a boat and you hear, you know, that's not their music. You know what I mean? That's not the depth of their music, you know? It's a giant country and they have hundreds of genres, though, but it gets deeper. You know what I mean? You know, the depth of their rancheras and their boleros and all those kind of things. You know what I mean? It's a wonderful world. You know what I mean? You know, and just like all the original people's cultures, filled with its levels of coonery, filled with its levels of commercialism, but also filled with levels of massive culture that are just, you know, beautiful to partake in. You know what I mean? All right. So it's something to take note of. You know what I mean? And even in the Mexican history, though, denying any type of link with Africa has been an ongoing way that they have been able to bolster and embrace their indigenous lineage as something separate from that. You know what I'm saying? When we're the 5%, when we talk about indigenous, though, we just mean like black folk from different places. You know what I'm saying? Different places that get counted as the first in different places. You know what I mean? But be wary of the anecdotal realities you have. You know what I mean? Right? Some of them are valid. Some of them are actually useful. Some of them aren't really that useful. And you know what? I don't know. As far as like blending anecdotal, like personal experiences, to also be scholarly with them and inject them to actually use them as like observations that lead into in-depth research and justification or promotion of ideas that are significant to show that. Like, I think one of the best books, and I don't know if I don't see any sisters here in the cipher, but hopefully they are, and if they make themselves known. But I think these are books that even men absolutely should read. If you have daughters, you definitely got to read it. But one of my favorite books that I read recently, in doing my research for the Earth's book list, really not a book list to replace anything, the Black woman has to read all the books that are on that 50 book beginner book list, because they got to get the knowledge itself. You know what I mean? But books that focus on particular things that got nothing to do with men and got to do with themselves, but they become important to us because we need to understand them. You know what I mean? I think one of the best books I've read, is this book. I'm writing down the name of it. Twisted, the Tangled History of Black Hair Culture. The reason I mentioned this book, since we're talking about it, right? Since we're talking about this concept, and I brought up this concept, one of the most important things in original people scholarship is that you're talking about science. You're talking about the black man as God. You're talking about the origins of the universe, and it is not disconnected. You cannot use completely the westernized scientific method, because you cannot just be an independent observer. You see? And that's where quantum concepts come into play, because you are embedded in the reality of what you're saying, and 120 should be looked at in this fashion. And I'm going to get into everything that you said, Quatis, and all the questions that I missed. But let me continue with this for a while. And I don't know if I can find it. I think it's in my research notes. Let me see my 120 research notes, because hopefully I kept it in the beginning of this. No, I didn't. I did not. But the truth is that studying 120 has a great level of bias in it, because you're embedded in it. So how do you do that? How do you take on the anecdotal things that have some validity to at least help you analyze the broader situation, right? And to find instances of nuance and detail. I think one of the greatest examples, reading it here in the modern era without getting millennialized and without losing the concepts, and having great commentary on today's revolutionary mindsets and all that. So it even fits with anything I could talk about with any of the commentaries I would have later on Judas and the Black Messiah. Emma Dabiri is really great at putting the Black diaspora's experiences and connecting them all. And you know why? One of the reasons she's able to do it is because she was forced to take that broader approach by her actual life. not being African American, she's literally from another country, and she's of half Irish and half African, roots. And so it guides her scholarship and gives her a complete Black diaspora look. This is the way. This is the way that we need to look at things and be able to look at our cultures, our immediate ethnic cultures. Because you say you're African American or you're Black from here, you're not the original true and living God. And then now all of the things that you're engaging in, from BET to any other junk, is 5% daily life culture. No, you're the true and living God. And none of those things have anything to do with that culture. You know what I mean? I don't care how early 5% is, because I know we would sit there when it got knowledge, though. And, like I said, I was, you know what I mean? The culture, and I'm just saying this as a Boricua, that's New York. A lot of the culture that brothers think is really is only theirs, though, we was living it out. You know what I mean? Being hip hop, we was living it out. So when I was getting knowledge, though, we spend, hours out there in front of a law school listening to old soul music. You know what I mean? And I knew everybody, the dramatics, delphonics, main ingredient, the moments, Temptations, you know what I mean? Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. I know all of that. You know what I mean? Before I got this, you know what I mean? But that's not the 5% culture. You know what I mean? And yet it is, you know what I'm saying? Because it's Black, you know what I mean? And I want you to look at that as like all these other cultures. When you Asiatic God mathematics go into your Mexican cultures and stuff like that, that's your culture too. You know what I mean? That's yours. Because when I listen to, Mexican culture, like for example, the latest thing I was looking, because there's a side note, I'm going on a lot of side tangents. I do this in the classroom a lot, physical. So if I lose my track and stuff, I usually get it back. Quatis knows this too, right? I have a certain theory about the Grammys and the commercialization of music, though, but that's for another time, And it's being done with hip hop. That theory is being applied to hip hop and the Grammys as well. But I usually check a lot of the Grammys to see what I've missed with the other genres, because I don't really collect new music. I don't really collect new music from other genres. 90% of the music I collect that's new is from hip hop. 90%, not all of it, but 90%. And that's a lot of music I collect. Most of the music I collect from other genres, I like to collect old stuff, the classics and the foundations, you know what I mean? So if I'm collecting old Mexican music, rancheras and things like that, it's old school stuff, you know what I mean? Right? But I like to check the Grammys to see if they actually have stuff that's good, and I'll go collect it. And more often than not, though, non-hip-hop genres usually have good stuff. There's reasons, I think, for that, you know what I mean? And there's reasons that they also miss stuff, too. It depends, though, like the tropical, I hate that word for Latin Caribbean, but they can't just call it Latin Caribbean. Salsa records usually are trash, though, or just usually lacking, most of them, or just a little boring, you know what I mean? But I had looked up some of the Mexican records on the list in the Grammys and the rancheras were really beautiful, you know what I'm saying? Just throwing this out there, young sister, what's her name? What's her name here? Yeah, Lupita Infante. And she had a beautiful record called La Serenata, you know what I mean? The Serenader, you know what I mean? And beautiful album, beautiful sister. They really know the tradition, and it's totally traditional music. So I'm only stating that so that way you could start your travels from the new and go backwards and just really enjoy that. You know what I'm saying? If it was the opposite and you don't know your African American heritage, though, start with, something new like the Free Nationals, and listen to some funk and then go back. You know what I mean? This is all our culture. You know what I mean? And as original people, One of the things when we get the knowledge of self, we should be engaging in all the aspects of each other's culture. Instead of trying to say, well, your people treat me like this and your people treat me like that. We're supposed to be the Renaissance men, the people that have absorbed all the culture and are able to adapt and know the beauty of each other's culture and then be the gateway to all these things. You know what I mean? The Egyptian mystery school system colliding with all of these original people all over the globe, from here, from there, from everywhere, all over the globe into this one space. That's supposed to be us. That's supposed to be our mindset. You know what I mean? So it's a wonderful position to be in, a wonderful responsibility. You know what I mean? And you should always look at it like that. You know what I'm saying? Because somebody's always going to front. You know what I mean? Right? The more you do stuff, even your own people supposedly will front. You know what I mean? Right? There's not too many Puerto Ricans that are 5%ers that have done this much in hip hop, right? You know, I get it. You know what I mean? Or I don't get it. You know? Or I'm not involved in certain ciphers. You know what I mean? When it's time to mention a certain Boricua I've known. And that happens to me, not just me, but many others. You know what I mean? But you have the chance to be an ambassador of understanding the style, the techniques, and who knows, this could spark the creativity that you have in you. You know what I mean? It's really important. But anyway, Emma Dabiri is one of the best books I've read. It's really enjoyable. If you have sisters, if you have, mothers, if you have, and just keeping it real, if you have relatives of any kind, you have daughters that have hair that is that coarse, you know what I mean? Because the family I'm coming from, though, they don't get to those high levels. Only few of them, you know what I mean? They're all light-skinned at it. You know what I mean? But some of them do. And a lot of things in the book related to my own daughter, my eldest daughter, you know what I mean? And things that I realized in my life with her, you know what I mean? And the backstory and the history, consider it like a foundational text that goes way beyond Chris Rock's documentary, Good Hair does. If you have daughters, if they read this book and they watch the Good Hair, Chris Rock documentary, such a higher level of awareness. And of course, though, if you had to pick one, it would be the Emma Dabiri's book. There's so many ways that she relates to the young sister that is reading it, is able to give anecdotal real life scenarios that trigger off into things that don't end up being biased, because she's constantly noting the levels of her biasness. This is also something that is also prevalent in the research of Ivan Van Sertima. And look at Sertima. Why was Sertima so able to be his own Egyptian mystery school system and absorb all of these different scholars that some he didn't agree with, was agreement with, and they were technical disagreements with? Not like, I hate this guy, he's about white power, he's a sellout, but was able to unify them and really give them their own space, to really build. And that's a beautiful thing, you know what I mean? And she definitely is in that range, And by the way, that's one of the reasons why, I have such a big reverence for Ivan Van Sertima, you know what I mean? Sometimes the most that you can learn from Ivan Van Sertima is in the introductions to his African origin book series, how he blends them, how he put them together. Why did he put certain things together? Take note of these things. You know what I mean? When you have this knowledge of self, though, whether you like it or not, though, to build, you're an ambassador for all the human families. Yeah, you're putting shit in its place, though. You're a damn cracker. You're a damn devil. You're on that side. You know what I mean? That's going to happen. You got to pull yourself up. You're not being righteous. No, you're not being a true and living God. That's just what it goes. You got to have that toughness. But the truth about it, though, is that you also have the chance, though, to understand all these different cultures and try to understand the vantage points. You know what I mean? And link that road. It isn't just The original man created everything, and then we're the original man, and you don't know none of the story and cannot connect any of the fragments and branches and anything. You know what I mean? It's a poor use of knowledge, you know? So it's a wonderful thing, you know what I mean? You know, it's a wonderful thing, you know? Your original man, you don't have to be black and African American and Mexican like Asiatic God mathematics. You know what I mean? You can delve into the Indian cultures. You can delve into, you ought to delve into Jamaican music. If you're African American, you should be studying Jamaican music and all reggae and all its early forms, dancehall, ska, all of these things. Absolutely, not just for their enjoyment, but as part of your counter history. It's part of adjacent history because they were studying African Americans, and that's how they springboarded their music. And then it becomes, because of that, it becomes a foundational root to how hip hop is built. This is the kind of stuff that we need to do overtly, outright, knowing how it all works like that. And that's how a diaspora works. You know what I mean? Yes, we were in different places, but how do we come together? How do we use these things? And now that you can learn so many things about so many different cultures, this is a goal. This is an absolute goal. And I define it mainly by music and my music examples because this is the trade that I'm in. You know what I mean? I spent years writing about music. I make music. You know what I mean? So it's something that extends to all things. You know what I mean? Let me read some of these comments. I rambled on for quite a while. Malik Lowe, what do you mean, Malik? What did Elijah mean in the hereafter? The word hereafter means it means basically after God has come. You know what I mean? Of course, though, you know, when anybody thinks of that stuff, though, they're thinking of like, you know, when Fard comes in a spaceship, he blasts all the crackers and blah blah blah, and ridiculous. But that's what the word hereafter means. So in this case, it would mean after, you know, the coming of God. Quatis, you had asked, peace self I built. Quatis, you had asked, how does genetic biological actuality and inheritance relate to notions of God and devil? Can the offspring of God be made weak and wicked? And conversely, can the offspring of devil be made supreme? You're born true and living, being a true and living God, being the black man, but you can inherit an entire reality and be nurtured and allow that nurturing to make you a piece of, you know, hell, you know, a piece of living hell. You know what I mean? So I think this, you know, when we look at any man which is made, any man made weak and wicked is devil. You know what I mean? Any man which is made weak and wicked is devil, right? That's the understanding degree. You know what I mean? The understanding knowledge degree is to make devil what must one first do? To make devil, one must first begin grafting from the original. A lot of the grafting starts with people's actual living conditions, right? The battle between nature versus nurture. You have your nature though, but man, from the minute you were born, nurture is kicking your ass. You know what I mean? Nurture is denaturing you. You know what I'm saying? And that's something to always take note of, right? So absolutely. You know what I mean? Absolutely. You know, it actually, you know, destroys people. You know what I'm saying? Now, can the counter the other question is, can the offspring of devil be made supreme? Though, remember, look, devil is someone who's weak and wicked. So I'm assuming that the person was wicked, and not necessarily so. Now, can they be made supreme? When we made supreme, though, supreme means that they're the supreme being, the true and living God, and that's a combination of nature and nurture. And no one can make you, no one can change who you actually are, your genetic reality. You know what I mean? Once it is, it is. However, though, the righteous man can live supremely. And the righteous man can live by living out a righteousness at its highest level. You know what I mean? Not always by succeeding, but by always advocating and always pushing themselves to the highest level of supremacy. And you know, there's no counter to that. You know what I mean? Again, though, once someone is born, though, it's their own decisions, their own actions that define them as wicked. No matter how much we graft, that devil had to do something wicked. You know what I mean? So if I build, you said, peace, peace, God. What's the origin of the peace hand gesture, index, and middle fingers utilized by the NGE? Can you give a history of it and its meaning as you understand? How would you teach it, its meaning to a student? Well, the peace sign doesn't really come from us, though. That means a victory symbol. You know what I mean? So it's some of its roots and usages are kind of heinous, though. Just like the peace symbol, you know what I mean, has its roots in the anti-nuclear, anti-nuclear weapons movement. You know what I mean? From the and that goes. I think it's from the same era, the '60s. But the truth is, the only variation that we do is that we put the fingers together to show, to overemphasize unity. You know. One of my kids does this or something like that, I'm not admonishing him and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It is an add-on. You know what I mean? Right? But it's pretty simple. It's not really, anything too complex. That's always that became the symbol of peace, even though it was originally a victory symbol. You know what I mean? But remember, a victory was the destruction of confusion. So it blended into the idea of peace very seamlessly. And I mean that, in the Western world and in American culture, So since peace became the word that we use, because God used to say Assalamu alaikum. I remember firstborn Prince telling me, that they went back to the father and they said, look, everybody makes fun of us because we say Assalamu alaikum, because remember, they're not around like righteous people. They're around like, where they're at. And he said, that means peace. Just say peace to them. You know what I mean? And like Savior Niles used to always tell me, if you say peace and a person isn't really, if they give you that negative current, though, they're already telling you something, So it's a great way to say it's a great way to have a greeting, We always will, and we always advocate for the absence of confusion in the ciphers that we are introduced to or introduce ourselves into, Continuing Quati's question, are humans trapped by the genetic makeup? No, in that question, no. No one is, you know what I mean? There's always something that they can do to manifest righteousness, though. Righteousness is never out of the bounds because righteousness is mathematical. So there's no human that's out of the realm of mathematics, though. You know what I'm saying? The making of the devil is to try to take a shot at that. And they have succeeded in veering away from mathematics. But no one that willingly is seeking to be righteous, though, is out of the realm of mathematics. No one. In that levels of righteousness. In fact, even to construct the negative deed, right? Many righteous acts must be made. In other words, and I mean righteous by right acts. You know what I mean? Even to do devilishment, it takes great work that has to be completed mathematically to actually do it. You know what I mean? To have an empire that works just for you, though, you still need people to build things, and you still need to feed people. You still need to advocate life in some sort of fashion to continue, even if it is the least a bit amount of life, And that's the craziness about it, though. When we look at it in the larger scheme, it's terrible, but in the immediate scheme, we realize that life has to be there for life to continue in any kind of way, no matter where you're veering in and out of mathematics. When you study, for example, You study the coolies and how people from, the East, this is after, African American slavery, and they start, taking massive amounts of Chinese and everything like that through boats. Their rates of survival were, almost as low as, not as low, but they were reaching a survival rate of like 30%. You know what I mean? Even going as low as to be about 3%. You know? Yeah, and Raja, you make a good point about the peace symbol. Some elders didn't like it. You know what I'm saying? But I only know that elder who didn't like it, though. You know what I mean? There weren't too many. The truth is that a lot of symbols and signs, they become more adapted to ciphers that are illegal because it's easier to make a message without saying anything. You know what I mean? And in prisons where you couldn't really build and shit like that, the peace symbol and things like that became a way of advocating. You know what I mean? A way of speaking the language, though, even if they could not speak it. You know? Convey the sentiments, even if they could not monologue the sentiments. You know? But excuse me. And I really think that I don't think that anyone exceeds their genetic boundaries. I think that people just fulfill the peaks of those genetic boundaries. You know what I mean? I think that people like Michael Jordan, though, they succeeded at the peak of their genetic boundaries. You know what I mean? You know? And the truth is that with proper nature, though, those genetic boundaries can be stretched. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to say that there's a limit. You know what I'm saying? When we don't really have measures of how intense those genetic boundaries are because they are actually augmented by nature. You know? Is what Yakub did forever change or create a distinct biological boundary between the races? I don't think so. I think we make it now because people have, over the last, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, definitely 6,000 years, of course, and certainly the last 500, people have been more, those who have taken and those who oppress have been able to basically segregate themselves, you know what I'm saying? Right? And basically segregate themselves from the empires that they create. You know what I mean? So it's still a false boundary because none of these, the grafted man, the Caucasian white man, his genetics cannot survive unless he mates back with the original. So no matter how much he segregates, though, he'll still have to mate with all of us. You know what I mean? So it's it's do or die, right? And these questions come from what I've read so far from Everyone is African. Yeah, an excellent book. You know what I mean? In fact, I think a lot of your understanding will get drawn out the farther you go into that book. You know, you're very welcome, Asiatic Mathematics. Peace, Rome. I appreciate the sentiments as always. The 50 book beginner book list, Malik, is what I give to all the students, though. You should have it too, though. So if you're not, just send me an email reminding me, you know? And we certainly are all interdependent upon each other. My last column, The Roots Must Be Rooted, is about the 14th degree in the 1 to 14. And that's not just the woman's degree, but also, how we're dealing with things, Hell, with Selena was popular. Okay. I hear you, Asiatic God Mathematics. All right. That's peace, God. Always gotta rep that low. Okay. Right. Look at the commonalities and not perceive differences. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know? And that's not just so we get along, self I build. I think in our research though, we have to also look at some of the original cultures though. They might be founded on developing differences. You know what I'm saying? Like Mexican is a good example. A lot of their culture is based on blatantly making a distinct difference with everyone else when they don't even have to. You know what I'm saying? And again, that's influence from the oppressor and everything like that. You know what I mean? Right? It's definitely influenced by the oppressor. You know. And Malik, you were referring to the 38th degree, so Allah come from the back as his reasoning for saying the hereafter. Nah. The hereafter is common. That's a common phrase used. It's not just a hereafter is not just a like a biblical term and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? It's used. It could be used for any. It's not just a Christian biblical term. You know. You know. It's used for all types. You know. Generally used for life after death. You know what I mean? So and reaches different sentiments when it's talked about with religions or spiritualities. You know what I mean? Right? You could even use it in regular context. Like from here, from hereafter, I will not be taking submissions. Right? Like it doesn't mean I said anything, ultra, biblical. Um, okay, that's Peace Malik. Definitely email me. Okay. And I think I'm up to date with my email. So if I didn't answer your email, definitely just forward it again because I think I most likely, now that I'm saying it, I probably missed it. You know what I'm saying? I probably missed it. Okay. All right. In this case, is there any difference in grafting or making it from the black man? Not really. No. You know what I'm saying? You know, grafting is a more intense word to show the context of it, the detail. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. It's really not. You know what I mean? Again, grafting is that the grafting is so much more of a word to say that, to emphasize that some type of destruction was done, something extra was done. It wasn't just simple breeding, you know what I mean? Or selective breeding. There was also destructing going on, you know, dilution of the blood, like, you know what I mean? Like the degree says, you know what I mean? To me, one of the most important degrees is really the degree before the 31st I mentioned, the 30th degree, you know? Certainly a crucial degree. Okay. In your last article, Kwati said, I like how you pointed out the lesson that interdependence is a pillar that holds up the family, highlighting the equal value man and woman have to a family, especially when children come into the picture. The destruction of the family seems to have taken speed once welfare came into the picture, at least in America, because of its design. Certainly, absolutely. You know, I think as men that are original men that are impressed in this capitalistic world um, at its peak, mainly America, right? We There has been a striving for equality, right? But there has been no lessening of the expectations that are expected of us, though. You know what I'm saying? And the problem with that is that there is no balance of how things will be done. You know what I'm saying? So how can someone be expected, right, to be just a provider and not be able to actually engage in other activities that are long-term goals if they're always stuck in the short-term goals of things? You know what I'm saying? And you know, these are things that are important, you know, when we think of things financially, when we think of things on many levels, you know what I mean? um there's also no real patience in the black family because of these expectations. You know what I mean? People don't seem to have real love because they don't really take the time and say, listen, whatever wealth that we could attain or security, these things will take time. You know? Now we just envision millionaires and people well off and stuff, and we just envision young people that make shitty records or play sports well as those people. You know what I mean? So there's no real building, there's no real building blocks, there's no grind, there's no conscious effort of love, hell, or right though for certain goals. You know what I mean? And they affect the family. You know what I mean? And that's what I was trying to say. And again, these things are very personal to me. These are things that I lived out. You know what I'm saying? So it's not so difficult to write about them as far as knowing them. And the way I tried to take it out of an anecdotal, just a me perspective, is to give all the sides to it. You know what I mean? To give the sides to it, But to be interdependent, with your partner is, there has to be love there. You know what I mean? And not love that is conditional based on the expectation of certain things. You know what I mean? There can't be, with this knowledge, there can't be these corny ideas of the true and living God. You know what I mean? And then all of the expectations are like really of a mystery God. You know what I'm saying? We're not a mystery God. You know what I'm saying? Right? We create the world that we're building in, though. So it's toil. It's toil every moment and every moment. You know what I'm saying? It's toil. So there's this notion that a lot of gods and earths get together, though, and and they both have westernized concepts of each other, even within that knowledge. He's the god, she's some kind of mystery to basically make the rich world that they have envisioned, and she's some type of super earth that, because she's the earth, though, she can bring forth all life and have no difficulties with any of those problems, that we would think of. You know what I mean? No, you're the earth. You bring forth life, though, and you have the bearings to do it all, and you'll do it all. You know what I'm saying? And that's not how it goes. You know what I mean? And not taking those acknowledgments, those is continuously destroyed the black family, where especially women, though, I put a lot of responsibility on women because the men been fucking up a long time with perspective, and women are at the point where they can actually physically actively revolt against certain things, and they're just doing, if I generalized, revolt in such a way where they get to do what the men did, and that's the most European thing you could do, to actually think like men have thought so erroneously for so long, that you don't really need both parents. You don't really need all of this. You know what I'm saying? Right. Again, this is in more detail in the last Peace Course column that I built on the 14th degree and the 1 to 14. Okay, so if I put the link right below, right there. Do I think America, and I mean, of course we mean United States, is gynocentric, focused on the woman, focused on their perspectives, their way of thinking. That's what gynocentric means. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think that's just that's just the new marketing. It's making money now. It's adapting to that. You know what I mean? That would be like saying that America is super pro trans or any of the things you want to say, LGBTQ, whatever the, you know, pick one. You know what I mean? Pick one of those in there. See if they love them. They don't have love for none of that. But they always learn that everything is a new market. So we get with the new market. You know what I mean? Right? We used to sell you him, his, and hers, though. Now we sell you his, hers, they, those, that, this. You know what I mean? See, we just, you know, I just sold you like 5 new towels right there. You know what I'm saying? This country doesn't give a shit about any of that. And they certainly don't give a shit about women, though, because it's all done to help imbalance things. You know what I'm saying? Like when men separate from their woman and they go, oh, look, this, you know, this country favors women with the child support and all those things. Those things are real. That's real. They absolutely advocate. There's only one superhero I know that was able to defeat the court system. There's only one superhero I know. You know what I mean? Right? But that superhero aside, you know, I don't know. There's absolutely no reason, right? There's absolutely no reason how that actually is a good thing for families. You know what I mean? It basically is saying as well, like, okay, we are continuing to advocate that women are going to have all of the responsibility for child rearing and everything. So if you go to court for this, though, we're going to continue that and just dump everything on the woman anyway. You know, when you look at it like that, then it's like, listen, let's destroy the man's ability to make his own life, to make his own decisions, to make even the ability to counter, to make a counter and a supplemental life for his child, because they're no longer together, which means that they no longer think the same, and that those child deserves a healthy version of both lifestyles, especially if his lifestyle is totally unique, you know what I mean? And something that they should see, right? For example, right? Some of us, the other parent is in a 5%er, and then the father stayed with that, you know what I'm saying, and lived that out. Or let's say, right, Black and Mexican, right, African American and Mexican, right? How does that child get the Mexican culture that got left out? You know what I mean? And other things like that, right? The courts will tell you, well, forget all that though. Just, you know, just ditch. You know, I know that. I've been in the courts. You know what I mean? I have 2 children I raise as a non-custodial parent, meaning that I don't live with them. So I know for a fact that the courts would tell you to just, you know, just bow out though. You know, just hand in the cash and shit. So it supports the society saying, it supports the concept of, you know, let women do everything though. You know, you just pay it though. You know? Now it hurts harder for the original man because he doesn't get paid a real salary anyway. And theoretically, it doesn't help, you know, it doesn't help poor whites because they don't make a living wage, you know? But that's, you know, and so just, hey, I'll just give money. That's all I have to do. Then that's good. That's not really how it works. You know what I mean? Right? That's not how it works, you know? There's 2 things to me that I have always felt that a couple should have if they make a family. They have their eyes on immediately keeping those everyone living and healthy and in the highest level of standard. Meaning that if you don't make that much, though, do you have a good level and high standard of food, clothing, and shelter? You know, people make it in life though, and they have a horrible standard of food. But they'll save up anything, though. They'll eat the worst foods just so they could save up money to get this, to get that. You know what I mean? There has to be some kind of balance, I think. right? But on the other hand, they should always be propelled toward the future. And I think that in a lot of couples and stuff, they don't really know what are going to be their assets, though. This is not a level of equality here. You know what I mean? In other words, though, who will make the most money, though, is no longer a gender question. Women get paid less, but the original man has a harder time being employed. You see? So the original woman gets paid less than a man or a white woman or a white man, but it is harder for him to get employed if we put those stats together. But then you have the other thing. As they work and they do their best to keep their family afloat, what are the skills and talents that they can embed themselves in and make themselves an entrepreneur, though, to take it to the next level with additional multiple streams, finding their own business, being their own employer, all of these things, right? And that's not a man or woman issue. That's who's got the talent, who's got the skill. You know what I mean? And again, this is where couples veer, you know what I'm saying? Because they think that's levels of equality too. You know what I mean? It's easy to make those decisions though when you got somebody that can dunk. You know what I mean? Right? That wife isn't going, you know what though, this NBA thing, you know what? I need to do what right? Because the talents that you can exploit come with the right salary, the right payment. In real life, they usually, you know what I'm saying? So how does a couple decide that? Can they work together though? Right? Can they be the supporter of someone else? These are hard questions though, Right? I'm single, so I know these questions have been answered no. I know what they look like when they're answered no. And I've seen people answer them positively yes and succeeded. You know what I mean? Yeah, Quatis, I'm I be going in. I don't know. Self I build, and it has hazardous ramifications as a child's perspective. Absolutely. Especially if the household is unstable, it breeds confusion, and the state is an unbalanced approach and against nature. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Part of my job as a parent is not only to give them what I have, though, but to help repair that break. Let them know that it wasn't their fault. Let them know that no matter, even if we could find fault in one individual, because shit is real. Sometimes you can. The truth is that the union that made them, no matter what, though, wasn't gonna work. Wasn't supposed to work, and it's not their fault, And that's it sounds like Goodwill Hunting, but child don't see it like that. You know why? Because the child deserves their father and their mother. You know what I mean? They deserve that. They deserve, they can't always get a lot of things, but they deserve, ideally, they deserve to see their father and mother whenever they can. You know what I mean? And a lot of children don't have the opportunity to see their parent. They get to see him, but I mean see him when they want to, whenever they want to, when they want to. Not when court said, not when two parents decided, when they feel like they want to see them. That's when they see him. And that's just not the case. That's not what happens. You know what I'm saying? And for that, though, to take that away from a child, that's something that as a parent, if you have children in that position like I do, you're always working to repair that. I don't give a shit how much forgiveness your child gives you. They grow up as an adult and they're incredible. You're always repairing that, because it's something that they have a right to that they didn't have. You know what I mean? The thing that's great about it is that you're not a parent of just a child, though. You're a parent of a human, and you're still their father, though. You know. And some of the best things I've learned, though, is to try to learn how to be the parent of an adult. You know what I mean? It was always the saving grace, though, when it looked very bleak for me, or when it does look bleak for me. And so I think, how can I be the parent of an adult? You know what I mean? Most parents aren't parents of adults. You know what I'm saying? And the truth is that they'll be an adult much longer than they're a child. So there's a lot more guidance and friendship and love, to come. You know what I mean? So it's something, it's something to think about, if you're dealing with that. You know what I mean? You're not just a parent until they're 21. You know what I mean? Quatis, you said it. What's more is the result is that all this destroys the fabric of these. Indeed, the self I build, she could do like Scotty wife, though. You get the bread, but she hop in beds. Yeah. Yeah, definitely not ideal examples, right? Jeez. Self I Build says, this is a serious topic for me. It hits different. That's why I study, learn discipline. It's for self, but also the family. Definitely. Primarily the babies, though. Can't repeat negative cycles. You know what I mean? Absolutely. You know what I mean? And here's the thing, though, right? The truth is that you could have laid down the entire history of your reality. You know what I mean? I'm the true and living God. I am such and such. This is how it will be. I will do all my best, but we will fall short here, there, because I am deliberately investing in doing this. This is what I'm going to be. And sometimes it sounds exotic, like, and I'm saying that personally because I'm a writer and I'm an artist, though. And, everyone loves the struggling artist, until it's a struggle. You know what I'm saying? Everyone, especially, I'm gonna say women and men, but like both genders, they love, the exotic. They love the artist. They love the creative of integrity. You know what I mean? Until, like Chappelle says, they have to eat integrity sandwiches for dinner. You know what I mean? And that's just the way of life. You know what I mean? And when they get hungry, though, revolutions end. You know what I mean? Just like in Cuba. You know what I mean? Right? It doesn't matter how good the Fidel speeches were. You know what I mean? They saw Pitbull dance, and that's something I'd like to have. You know what I mean? We shake our head and everything like that. But in general, though, you know what I mean? The nurture could take away, once it takes away bits of people's survival, they become weak. That's for sure. And they could actually delve into certain levels of wickedness. You know what I'm saying? Right? But 7930, you said a whole lot of thottery. Thottery, I like that word, though. It sounds elegant. Happening with those big salary entertainers, athletes, as opposed to solid, functioning, fruit producing, stable households that could have been established if both heads were on. Right. They're playing with small nation money. I think that's always going to be. That's all races. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to making big money and shit like that. You know what I mean? No one knows how life will be until they have greater responsibilities. You know what I'm saying? No one knows how life will be until people advocate for them. None of that. Like, you don't really know. You know what I'm saying? And you just prepare yourself to have integrity. You know what I mean? That's why integrity is something you prepare for. You know what I mean? So that you don't make mistakes that show no integrity. You know what I mean? That's why you have a chess mind and not just go with your immediate feelings. You know what I'm saying? some people won't see the Sunya's, and then because of that, some people won't see the Sunya's playbook until much later, though. You know what I mean? And they would have liked to read that book. Raja, yes, the superhero, one of the great superheroes, says, God, we straight up scientists trying to figure out how do we make it work. In the meantime, focus on the babies. Indeed, we need to find gods in us that are successful unions to build with them. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Definitely. Definitely right. You know what I mean? But, all right. Self-hard Bill said, I thought of that before. Two healthy family dynamics, really living out man, woman, and child. Yeah. Sometimes it's not that complex, though. Sometimes it's just that people don't really, what is a poor righteous teacher? A poor righteous teacher is sacrifice. Sometimes people don't want to make that sacrifice. You know what I mean? And I'm going to tell you this, you don't know. Like I said, a lot of these directives, a lot of the building, a lot of the things that we're doing now are in the midst of war. We're building families in the midst of war. All right? A war of oppression. Okay? Systematic oppression. And just like any type of war and battle, and you don't know who's real until the shots is fired. A lot of people hoop and holler and stuff like that, but they're not really about that like that. You know what I mean? They don't have that care. They don't have that love. They don't have that, the dedication, and certainly not to you. And you won't always know that until it gets real. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. You know what I mean? Society's realness, though, actually grasps the weak. You know what I mean? It takes hold of the weak. The devil's civilization is designed to use the weak. You know what I mean? Look at the way marketing is. Does marketing advertise the strength? You know what I'm saying? 90% of the time, they market the weakness in you. You know what I mean? That you can't eat just one. You know what I mean? When they advocate the strength of things, it's not really your strength. They're showing you the strength and be strong like this. And they show you a car. This is what other strong people do. You need to do like this. So you're doing things that don't really give you strength, but you're living vicariously. So in essence, it's always preying on the acknowledgement of your own weakness. This is the society that we live in. You know what I mean? So it's important to always take notice of stuff like that. Raja said we need to also add on with emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, communication, anger management. These are all aspects of the universe. Stress management. Otherwise, would be the next generations of gods fussing and fighting in front of a law school. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, definitely. one of the major things about communication skills I always stress is that we learn how to talk to the 85. We learn how to talk to the 10% if if they ever make themselves known. But we don't really talk about how we're going to talk to each other, though. And sometimes we do that. We do that horrible. You know what I mean? Right? We do that horrible. No. All right. Let me take a break right now. As you saw, I drank way too much tea, so I'm going to need a little break, and I'll be right back. Quatis, you had a good question, so I'm going to go into how to work on your journal and how to organize it. Okay. All right, I'm back. By the way, if you chew gum, though, don't chew all that bubblegum shit, all that sugar shit, or any of these sugarless gums, you know? Um, let's see. When I chew gum, I've always chewed the spry gum. I just mention it just in case somebody was, yo, Sunez chewing shit with pork in it. You know what I mean? Say some shit. Because I always get some type of troll. You know what I mean? So, xylitol is a sugar alcohol, so it doesn't really get absorbed in the body like sugar. You know what I mean? And it's very good for your teeth. You know what I mean? So, chew a gum every now and then is xylitol, you know what I mean? Of course, chewing gum, any kind of gum for prolonged periods of time, though, is going to cause gas, though, because you're sparking the digestive system too long. You know what I mean? With nothing happening. But, all right. Give me a moment. I'm going to get into the journal thing. I just want to write down some of the things I spoke on. Just writing down some of the things that we said so I can put it in the notes. All right. Okay, oh, I'm way off here. Not at the bottom. Quatisu asks, how do you organize your journal? Mine is all over the place. Thoughts, book notes, goals, but finding them or knowing where to look when I need them is a game of hide and seek. Do you number your pages or create a table of contents, so to speak? That's a really good question, though, because I've always had the problem. My main activity in my journal is to write about the books I read. It also sparks ideas. So a lot of times I'm writing and I might say, and if you've ever read anything I write, it doesn't really matter what I'm writing. I could go into poetic prose at any moment. That's how I work. And so if I'm writing in my journal and, I write that and I'm like Raekwon, looked it pretty, looked it pretty. And I say some marvelous ish. What I usually do, I have a tendency in the margin, the left-sided margin, right? I will put a squiggly line in the left margin. So when I go back, if I just need I need some fly shit, and I go in there and that was where it was, right? What about the books that I write? How do I figure out in all these journals? I just finished a journal today, so I finished book 60. How do I find things with 60 journals? You know what I mean? And there's more to come because now I for many years I didn't write at the frequency that I could, and now I do. And my frequency is very high, so it would produce 25 pages a week. So 200 page journals completed every 2 months. So there are 6 of them completed every year. And that's 6, give or take. So, 1,200 pages. And this is the exercise, you know what I mean? That's my Curry workout, you know what I mean? And writing about books, I get lost. Like, where did I write about this book? Things like that. What I do is I I have a list of all the books that I read. I do that. I highlight them. Now that I put them on the computer now. I highlight them if I've written about them in the books. Right? When I'm in the journal, I put a sheet into the binder, right, into the cover, inside cover, and I have a listing of what books I'm writing about in there. And then under that title, book title, I have the pages that I'm writing about them. So if I have thoughts on a particular book, they're in those pages. Thoughts and ideas that are very crucial and things like that. Again, they'll only be useful for me if there's something that I want to write about. You know what I mean? So I can go find it. You know what I mean? Because although there's simply those squiggly lines at the side. You know what I mean? But what you want to do is have a contents. Like, what are you going to put in there and stuff like that? You know what I mean? If you're very rigid and you want to go back to certain things, that's what you put in your contents. Things like goals and thoughts, those merge together for me. So what happens is if the goals become something I wrote about, that becomes something finalized. Like I had thought of a goal today that I'm just going to implement this week. And I wrote about it in there. But I immediately took the time out to write it into my phone so that way it is done. And that's going to be a task during the week, right? So it's not lost, you know, if it becomes a goal like that. But you could always write about goals as a specific topic, you know what I mean? And then in your table of contents, you could have it say goals and what pages did you write about goals from page 10 to 12 and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? You can always do that, you know? That's how I've always done it. Yeah. Yeah, so an overt table of contents. And obviously in the journals, they don't have page numberings though. I always number the pages. And you know, you find out that a lot of composition books though, they be cheating you out of pages. You know what I mean? You take away one sheet, that's, you know, that's 4 pages you lost, you know. Then you have a whole 196 page journal, you know what I mean? And so on and so forth. But number them though, so you can always go back to them, so you could always find your way in them and stuff. And of course, so you could count the pages that you're writing a week. You know what I mean? If you intend to do it that way and be regimented like that, you know. But with all the thoughts that we have, though, we need to have some way that, you know, we put it together where we don't, you know, lose all the ideas. You know, just write them in there. You know. So if you want to write your builds. In Days Mathematics, right? You could say builds and then what pages you put them in and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And in a 200-page journal, you'd be surprised that a sheet pasted in the inside cover and in the inside back cover could do it. You know, for me, a paste on the inside cover of one sheet is good enough for me. You know what I mean? Because the plastic is hard to write on. The laminated inside cover is hard to write on in a journal. My inside cover though, you know what's interesting? My inside back cover is to make it personal. I usually have some type of artwork from my little girl, you know, and I put it there, you know, or something from that time period in those 2 months, something that they may have made me or a picture or something like that. That's from that time period because it's also a capsule, you know what I mean? Also a capsule, you know? Like I used to put special shows that I went to or things like that, and I put that in the back cover, you know what I mean? And tape them in that back cover, in the inside of the back cover, you know? And they become, you know, history, you know what I mean? Your history. 793rd said, many don't have role models to emulate from, want to, nor care about truly unconditionally working through hills, valleys, and mountains to preserve the collective union for the long run. No, they do not. And you cannot make anyone do that. All the logic in the world, you won't do it. You know what I mean? They gotta want to. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes their own success though was really the goal. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes, especially being a God, a lot of times your relationships weren't really relationships. You know, you were just with them, showing them stuff. You know, and once they felt that they graduated from your reality, they didn't want to grind for a next level. You know, that could be even more difficult to achieve. You know, so that's what it is. You know, peace, self I build. I see prayer as goal setting. When folks pray around me, I say, you're goal setting. Yeah. You know, hey, it's time for me to goal request. You know, and it's just, you know. All right, I hope that helped. Yeah, a lot of times it is what it is. You know what I mean? Um, you could bring all the logic you want and everything like that, but you know, in the end, though, especially in this westernized world, though, love is taught so much by feelings. You know, and if you feel things are difficult, you know, and if you feel like you're comparing yourself to others and not really achieving what others have, especially with Instagram, you know, and seeing other people's lives and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Um, those things change a person's goals and approaches. You know what I'm saying? Just like the Tao, you know, one of its last, the 80th, you know, what was it? The 80th. Let me try to find it instead of the 80th aphorism, right? The 80th sutra, the 80th of the 81 sutras in the Tao Te Ching. Um, you know, speak about the simplicity of life. You know, the more people saw, the more that they coveted, and so the people that had very little though didn't covet, and so there was so much more peaceful. It's not really um, about keeping people away from things. The whole point of that aphorism and that particular sutra, that is an aphorism, right? Because it has so much jewels in it. Um, is that people's goals were defined by what they truly needed and wanted, not based on what others saw. It takes a great responsibility to be able to see the whole world, you know, and that's why a lot of people don't want you to see the whole world. And that's why a lot of people shouldn't, you know what I mean? For example, like social media is a way of seeing the whole world, but it's also the responsibility of being able to speak to the whole world. And you see how many people botch that up, you know? Let's see. All right. Circuit fire. When I first started journaling builds for this class, I was doing a bullet journal because I liked the way it allowed me to include artwork. Okay. However, I found the traditional line format to be quicker, non-linear versus linear, so to speak. I'm a perfectionist, so if I don't like the way my font style looks, I rip too many pages. Okay. And that's good. That's real peace, Jarrell, because you're figuring out not just what you want to say, but the way you want to say it is also part of the creativity. That's this journal, writing your journal is also to develop your creativity. You know what I mean? By organizing your thoughts, you also see how you want to express them. And that's part of creativity, is picking the form by which you'll express your creativity. So, good work there. Yeah, I see you 793rd. Okay. Quatis, first with the build on today's mathematics. Wisdom, power, all being born to God. The use of varied ideas to impact self-rejuvenation. Various ideas on cooking healthier meals. Various ideas on how to strengthen the body and organ functions. Various topics of learning that engage the intellect and therefore refresh the state of being. And this affects how and what we develop. The power is stronger by applying focus to one's intentions. Uh-huh. Okay. Wisdom is the application of knowledge, right? We get simple. The use of it, the testing of it, the living with it, right? And the truth is that being God is the living with your own power. You know what I mean? Just like the Tao Te Ching means the way in its power, wisdom, power, all being born to God is living with yourself. Because the reality of yourself, though, is someone that will be wisely empowering at every turn. Someone whose work is always based on what he is doing, right? And what he is always doing, though, is going to have power. It's going to have influence, right? In a positive way or in a negative way, right? It's good, Bill Quetzis. See, the power of the original man is always there. You know what I mean? So in your life, you're always wisdoming your power. Everything you do will always be powerful. And to note that everything that you do as God is wisdom power, everything that every bit of knowledge that you truly learn and that you truly use, right, will power over something, power through something, and hopefully empower you and others. But all of it, though, is daily lived as wisdom power. You know what I mean? It should remind you of the responsibilities you have to this world, to yourselves, you know, and to do your best, though, to find some type of way, you know what I mean? To get over the societal difficulties that are thrust upon us. You know what I mean? Because that's what I spent most of this time was talking about. You know what I mean? Right? A lot of us, a lot of relationships and stuff like that. That's all societal problems, really. You know? And people feeling so trapped in them that they feel like it's taking away from their womanhood or their manhood. You know what I mean? So they must escape it, and they can no longer love via it. You know what I mean? And you know, that's really important. You know what I mean? But you have to see everything as moments of wisdom power. You know what I mean? That every moment is a moment for that. You know? That's crazy. Is everybody here? I'm not getting any builds on the day's mathematics. You know what's funny? I keep saying this, but y'all are really dry, except for Quatis. He gets a gold star. Y'all are always dry on the days that born God. Like, that's the only one y'all don't want to build on. You know what I mean? You know, you got to take different activities. Like Quatis, you had a great one there, right? Another goal is to build on wisdom, power, being born to God. You do this with the God ones. Can you build and get a scientific principle out of it? Something, a scientific principle of wisdom and power that proves the reality of God. Right? Maybe the neuroscience for wisdom, right? Neuroscience, and I'm going up ahead here. Jacob Caruthers, I'm forgetting the name of his book. Right, the last chapter in Intellectual Warfare. warfare, right? Revealing the pain and and Jacob Caruthers' work, writing it down so you could just see it, revealing the depth of the word. So we would say it would be wisdom, manifesting one's reality, right? What are the scientific principles in wisdom power? You know what I mean? And in there, though, we just exemplified wisdom power, right? The manners by which melanin, right, have the ability to absorb chemicals, right? And then transmute them, or better word, um, and alchemize them to a viable reality, right? Can't just think about builds that are for life, for your own life, but also blending in the scientific principles that you're learning. You know what I mean? This is key. You know what I mean? Forgive me for the pause. I literally, I go through these, and at this moment, I didn't want anything that we're doing to get messed up, because I have collected. I constantly do this, but I have collected so much music that it was time to transfer everything. So, you know. Oh yes, Quartz. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't get to watch it though. You had sent it when I was training, and I just put it aside, and I totally forgot about it. I definitely will check that out. A place of strength and truth, describing the conditions that may slow us down from creating influence, love, peace, and happiness to others. Indeed, indeed. By the way, Jarrell, you had asked me about my thoughts, and you had some thoughts about Judas and the Black Messiah. I did see the movie. You know what I mean? Great movie. If you guys are really into the learning more about the Black Panthers and all that, I have a lot of materials. I think one of the best books to start with is "Seize the Time" by Bobby Seale. Obviously you want to read Soul on Ice, Elwich Cleaver. It's so famous. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of other books. Huey P. Newton's books. You know what I mean? His Reader. That's P793. You get it in. Did I miss the first part? Okay. Okay, definitely had the opportunity, you said, to actively, acutely, and critically draw up these wise words, reflections, actions, expressions of ways, and by experience facilities of us live in Islam, speaking from a place of strength and truth. That's peace, God. Describing the condition that may slow us down from creating the influence, love, peace, happiness to all human families. Yeah, that's what you try to do, you know? Sounds pretty big, you know, when you say it like that. You know? But Judas and the Black Messiah, though, should be a central viewing, though. It's a hard movie to watch. I never, I as a young man, I learned about Fred Hampton, and he was always the Black Panther I didn't study because I would be so angry. In other words, I studied his theology, but I didn't study the crime and how they took his life very much in detail because I knew he was killed by the police, and that was enough for me to be angered by it. You know what I mean? Fred Hampton is a lot like the father because he spoke about teaching all the human families. You know what I mean? He's important because the blatant show of organizational skills is best, exemplified by him, or is wonderfully exemplified by him. Because I couldn't say best because there's so many Black Panthers that were worthy. But one of the great things about the movie is the idea of a Judas in there and showing that mentality. And I want you to understand, though, that what feels like a betrayal to you is just survival to somebody else. And in the end, though, it is very difficult to criticize the survival of certain people. What I'm saying is this. That was a snake to the utmost. You know what I mean? An absolute snake to the utmost. And at the same time, though, he also was being used as a tool and slave. We could do all of you 16. We say that you're a grown man because you who's poor righteous teacher, poor part of planet Earth. That's 16th degree, so 16 you're a man. And in real life, it don't really work like that. You know what I'm saying? The truth is that they were all young, learning as they go along. And with some people, though, morals, ethics, and ethos aren't part of that. You know what I mean? And just like I said, with families, also with the revolution, with movements, business ventures, whatever the hell it is, you know what I mean? You have to understand, though, that when people are put to the position of survival, though, they would do all types of devilishment. You know what I mean? And some of them is not always blatant. And it isn't always easy even for them to do it. They just feel it has to be done. And that's why sometimes the hip hop that we accept is so fucking annoying. You know what I mean? Because you would think that at least we could accept it based on a quality of music. Because that alone, though, would at least be some kind of saving grace. Because whether it's quality music or not, we have a tendency to advocate so blatantly for the lack of morals and compartmentalize the achievement of a goal. I got this money. I got this status. I made it at the behest and at the easy tossing away of any type of sacrifice of morals, ethics, or anything. And then we openly accept that we have to live in a society where the person that threw away all their morals is the one that could sit at the mountaintop and moralize shit on us. I find it a joke. I find it funny that we have to look to criminals that have made records, that have given them money, and they become community leaders, but for no other reason, because they've done nothing of integrity. They made a music with no integrity after they were doing street activities with no integrity. But now, because they've made so much money, now we have to listen to them speak on morality and try to give us some of the inspiration of morality. And yet they don't give us a playbook of who we should step on or how we should step on people, how we should use their ladder and then burn the ladder as we get up there, because this is the only experience that they truly, really have. So when you watch the movie and you see Judas and the Black Messiah, understand this, that in most of our daily life, we're advocating and saluting people that are more like the Judas than like the Black Messiah. And that's why even to that now, like this is my work, music, and I still haven't listened to the entire Judas and the Black Messiah soundtrack, because I find it pathetic that someone who advocated a completely entire revolution, scrap everything and start something new that we can decide what would be socialism for us. All right? Not a Leninism, not a Stalinism, not even a Fidelian way of socialism, because that wasn't molded, or he didn't know enough about that then. But understanding the revolutions of the world and molding something that is what we make, and we make the decisions of what would be righteous, though. That's what Fred Hampton was about, and not black capitalism. He literally said that black capitalism wasn't the answer. I'm not saying for you not to make money. I'm not saying that I am not in the process of working to make money and saying I deserve money for all of the things that I have done, because we're in that situation where we have to, right? But this idea, understand that the hypocrisy of what we've been presented with is in the packaging. You know what I mean? Not just in a Hollywood film about it, but we've been packaged with something where now the score, the actual score of the soundtrack, something that propels the ideas of the movie, is a bunch of black capitalists that were nowhere, no how, no angle that could be found, have reached success in a totally different pursuit. You know what I mean? The only thing close off the bat is probably what Nipsey Hussle was doing. And who did they pair him with? The hypocrisy is mind-blowing. Just mind-blowing that even Jay-Z is even on a soundtrack like that. You know what I mean? Because he did it his way. And that's another lie. You break down the way these people make their millions, they didn't do it any way but the way that Massa wanted them to do it. You know what I mean? The extraction of the talented hustler will always happen in our societies. The greatest crabs in a barrel climber, you know what I mean? The mountain hiker of the bunch is always going to be on top. They'll always have their chance. But what's revolution? What is revolution? Not to abandon, just abandon. And some people do. And they become, most of them don't become Fred Hampton. They do not become legends of the abandonment of everything in the wrong society to try to do something completely 100% different. The truth is that most of them fail and are crushed. And the truth is that most revolutionaries have to actually engage in the small victories. So they'll have to capitalize. They'll have to monetize. They'll have to actually engage in increasing the quality of our survival in this oppressive society before they can completely revolutionize it. And when we look at someone like Nipsey Hussle, that's someone that was actually successful in that. Absolutely successful in that. When you look at someone like Jay-Z, you see someone that is a genius of talent, of appropriation, of ways and means, and did not do it like that. But he follows he follows the Andrew Carnegie model. He follows the Rockefeller model. Become the billionaire, then you rebrand yourself as a philanthropist. Like I said, we advocate love for people that are so willing to starve, to exploit, to manipulate millions, and salute them when they are on that mountaintop and can help thousands. You think about that when you make your empire. You think about that when you decide how revolutionary you will be. And you think about that when you look at people and that they've all been raised in this fashion, and that the mentality of Judas is not there. You know why I find the movie so relevant? Because Judas is the most relevant character today. You know what I mean? What he did was basically how they have been able to imprison and magnify the entire system. They reward the snitch. People don't notice that immediately because Judas, right, his character, I forget his name, so I'm going to get his name because I don't want to keep calling him Judas. It's not a biblical character. William O'Neill didn't have anybody to snitch on. So they said, "You're very skilled. Let's go put you somewhere where you can find somebody to snitch on." You know what I mean? We have a Raja put up that 10-point program, some of these major aspects, and we're listening to a soundtrack that's filled with people that have no bearing and are willing to do the robbery. You know what I mean? They're the black capitalists. You know what I mean? Yeah. I read Michael Eric Dyson's book on Jay-Z, and I've never read a more skillful and pathetic book in my life. You know what I mean? Michael Eric Dyson is skillful. He is verbose. His vocabulary is extraordinary and intriguing. And he wrote one of the greatest literary crock of shits I'll ever read in my life. Absolutely. You know? That's right. That's right, Raja. You know? What I'm saying is this, right? We all have contradictions. We'll all be stuck in working on these contradictions. But please notice the hypocrisy. Please notice that in your daily life, the William O'Neill is not a boogeyman that is rarely to be seen. You know what I mean? When you go to Cuba, there are little William O'Neills, though. And yet the revolution was destroyed. Because all it takes, though, is people to be put in a position of survival for them to combat that. And to say the hell with all of this. Whatever you deem revolution. You know what I mean? Because in the end, though, people have decided that it's the way that I'm living that will be the end goal, as opposed to the nature by which I think of how I will make my living, how I will be living, as opposed to where I'm living, how I feel when I'm living. You see? And for those, though, I'm going to tell you something. People not built for revolution. You know what I mean? Even many people with the knowledge of self, though, have all these fancy fucking builds about how they're not poor. Of how I'm righteous. I'm a righteous teacher, but I ain't poor. I ain't this. I'm going to get that money. And you know what I mean? And lose total track of the whole fucking point of that fucking degree. Revolution of any kind is based on sacrifice. And until we learn if there would be one thing that we could sacrifice, just one thing, this revolution becomes much closer. Revolution, not a change to what you think it'd be, but an entire revolt, entire change that allows people to make a decision based on humanity and what it ought to be, as opposed to how can I get my meal tomorrow? That's what revolution is. The ability to have the people choose that. That was what Fred Hampton was about. And that's what makes him a great, great man. You know? Why do you think he made up these sayings? Power to the people. You notice that so many things that he said are things that people say, our people say when we make fun of things that other people make fun of. Power to the people, you know, all that kind of stuff. We make fun of these sayings because we don't listen to what they mean. I don't mean it that way. He's yet a God mathematics. Sacrifice, culture, God, culture, devil heads. You know? I know I don't mean it physically. I know I don't mean it emotionally. Because if you don't identify your emotions, you can never deal with them, with their roots. You know what I mean? Sacrificing time. Making decisions. You know what I mean? That sacrifice the easy way out. You know what I mean? Sacrificing for your children, do things for them. To teach them in a certain way that takes more time. You know what I mean? Giving a child difficult work, difficult hells, so that in the future that they come out righter, right? Even though you will not be liked for sure at the moment. You know what I mean? What is sacrifice, though? You know what I mean? I see very little of it. You know? But the Judas and the Black Messiah is something to see the nature, you know? See, you don't have to respect William O'Neill. You know what I mean? But to try to understand it, to try to see that it exists. You know what I mean? To try to see that it's out there, that, you know, not everybody, you know what I mean? To try to always remember that there always could be a level of naivety in all of us, though, that deal with these ideals that can only be lived idealistically. This truth, no matter how much you try to make it plain, it is lived idealistically. You know what I mean? Right? So it's important, you know? And I don't think that this movie should be put in the level of, like, for example, not saying that you did 793, but like where they just make a movie glorifying a snitch, because that's not what it was, you know? Probably the only mistake in the movie, they took their liberties, but the unity between Black Panthers and the Puerto Rican Young Lords wasn't just linked by Fred Hampton during those particular moments shown in the film. Chapters throughout linked with each other. You know what I mean? They already had a working solidarity and an ethos and a cultural unity and an acceptance of their genetic alikeness. And I'm saying that from personal knowing certain young lords and the research I've done. The movie also shows how J. Edgar Hoover was kind of like, and the way the movie's designed, it labels Fred Hampton as the Black Messiah. But the truth is that the Black Messiah was any Black man that was actually unifying people in a righteous way. It wasn't meant for just that one man. It meant anyone. And as the movie goes along, though, the listener that is learning from it might lose track of that. There's also another error in the movie, or could have been done better, was that they made the cops look like they also made it look like the Black Panthers were not disciplined and were willing to engage the cops and at the headquarters. And then also the rogue Black Panther that got killed shooting cops. Those are taken very much out of context, because that's not really that is alleged. The cops had, because of J. Edgar Hoover, the cops had an open season. I mean, the government says that they're evil. So cops could do anything for the hype. And that's what was happening with Black Panthers. They were being hunted down. In that headquarters struggle, the Black Panthers did not lose patience and just shoot off. Literally, it was a raid. So they had already raided in there. So that's a little different. You know what I mean? And I guess that it makes it better like a standoff if you do it that way, because the truth is that the Black Panthers, there's a lot of raids. You know what I mean? Also, too, one thing to learn from, though, is that the revolutions that he learned from, Fred Hampton mentions a lot of the African revolutionaries, but a lot of the models of the Black Panthers are based off Latin American revolutionaries, especially Che Guevara, especially Latin American revolutionaries, because the reason that J. Edgar Hoover and the government didn't go with the breakfast program, and it's just for you to add on, because in the movie it just looks like evil. It is evil. What the hell? But there's a science to why they would do something that seems so ruthless, is because in Latin American revolutionary sectors, the revolutionaries have to educate the populace to be with them. And they would bring those people that they were educating to what they call a foca. And in that foca, it's like a classroom. where they would educate them about the revolution, because where they're living, they don't really understand the macro levels of how they are oppressed. So they're like, who are we fighting? This is just the way it is. They don't see the devil. They don't see the 10%. They don't see the corporations. They don't see the multinationals. So that they don't know how this all connects. And that's what the P.E.A.C.E is in the revolutionary system. And the Black Panthers were not doing the breakfast program to have an open P.E.A.C.E, but it was definitely a way to show the community that they had more to share. And then those that appreciated that would be going into their meetings and learning. And certainly revolutionary education, though, was definitely a part of it. You know what I mean? And that's why the father was so dangerous, though, because his entire lifestyle that he showed us was a natural lifestyle of a P.E.A.C.E. It wasn't just about revolutionary reality, but it was how you can live and how you will live as yourself under all means. So just important that Fred Hampton saw the humanity of people because he studied revolution as a diasporic tradition, not as an African-American necessity. So he was able to see beyond, just like Elijah Muhammad was able to do that, and high springboards off Marcus Garvey and Booker T. Washington, right? Roger, you said, I see God as one whose word is bond, whereas the color man tells lies, steals, and tries to master the original man. God is righteous, whereas devil's weak and wicked. Indeed. I thought the movie was okay. Could have been better, though, as far as the acting is concerned. Well, that's curious. I thought the acting was excellent, especially Lake Keith. I mean, he did an incredible job with O'Neill. Now remember, I thought, as far as emulating Fred Hampton, I thought that Kahlua was great. Remember that there isn't much for him to use, and there isn't much that he said. He was very simple. The revolution, as expressed by Fred Hampton, was so simplified so well that there wasn't much to act. You know what I mean? Only what was given. You know what I mean? It wasn't like there isn't as much to study as, say, like a Malcolm X or something. You know what I mean? Or Martin Luther King per se. You know what I mean? So, take that into consideration. LT said, "Peace. I really appreciate at the beginning that they did put the quote from Hoover when he said we must stop the rise of black." Oh yeah, crucial. Our people need to know that they have continually tried to stop leaders in our community. I mean, that is part of treachery, and that is part of the reality that they have openly kept our people enslaved. You know what I mean? And you say our people say, "Oh, no, you Puerto Rican." The greatest revolutionary in Puerto Rican history is Pedro Albizu Campos, and it wasn't Spain that killed him, and he wasn't fighting against fucking Spain. He's fighting against the U.S., and it was the U.S. government, though, that tested their radiation on him and slowly irradiated him day by day, withering his body away until he died. And if you think Pedro Albizu Campos wasn't revolutionary, you need to get some of his speeches translated, because he was more fiery than even anything that Fred Hampton or Malcolm X ever said. He was far more militant. You know what I mean? And before these crazy crackers thought about getting into the, getting into the Capitol building in any place like that, Lolita Lebron had already done that. You know what I mean? For the cause of Puerto Rican independence. So, that Black Messiah, though, meant, any of the original people uplifting the people. He was doing, LT, you said it, Hoover was doing counter-intel tactics before that was even this thing. Well, he's the originator, you know what I mean? He's the originator of it. You know what I mean? They eventually, if you read the COINTELPRO papers, he's the linchpin of it, right? Raja said, one's lived culture, power, equality, determines our ability to show and prove as a true and living. The quality of the God degree of supreme math is the fruit of one's inner development, outer expression. Absolutely. Panthers were the vanguards of Black Power at the end of the 60s. That's peace. I appreciate that, God. Yeah, but always been a difficult person to study, Fred Hampton, because as a young man, that was very difficult to learn about that. Yeah, I point out the breakdowns and the deficiencies because for a Hollywood movie, those are almost none. Those are very, very slightly glaring issues, because they're not ruining the history. It's something that if you went and got further information, it doesn't conflict very badly. And if that was all you decided to stay with, though, you'd stay with quite a bit until you decided to really learn. You know what I mean? Right? Certainly way more than the glaring deficiencies in Malcolm X, Spike Lee's Malcolm X. That has deficiencies that actually impair learning this knowledge of self. Right? Foca. I used to have a great book on it. I lent it and I never got it fucking back. You know what I mean about that? Yeah, and yeah, see, in Wikipedia they documented as foco. So I've read it as foca in other Latin American journals, but foco, I guess, is more of the common word, I guess. But just to start you off, though, Wikipedia has some stuff about foquismo. I mean, theory of revolution by way of guerrilla warfare known as foquismo, formulated by French intellectual and government official Regis Debray, whose main source of inspiration was Marxist revolutionary Che Guevara's experiences surrounding his rebel army's victory in the '59 Cuban Revolution. That's why it's called foco, but that's why I call it foca, because Latin America they call it foca. But it's important stuff here. Let me put that in there. That way you can see. Yeah, this is important. You know what I mean? Yeah, check that out, though. Right? Yeah, if you wrote Folka, you might get some bad music from Yugoslavia or something. I don't know. You're not gonna get the proper revolutionary, mandates and stuff, you know. Like I said, I had some really good literature on it though, and damn it, it was about Guatemala too, Guatemala specifically, you know. And these are books that, if they're even made into a PDF, it'd be amazing. All right, so I think that, well, first, it's not what he left out. It's just that he wasn't going to go into that. You know what I'm saying? I think that Spike Lee doesn't know the knowledge at all. You know what I'm saying? Never really got the real truth about why Malcolm left as compared to what was taught. I think he made the simple tip, the simple, you know, Malcolm X, Elijah Evil, and just play with those, you know. Didn't learn enough though, and I don't think he was in tune and in touch, you know. So, because that's a big problem in the Malcolm X movie, the demonization of Elijah Muhammad, you know, because when Malcolm X goes to the East, and according to Alex Haley's biography of him, autobiography of him, now he suddenly realized that whites under Islam can be righteous and stuff, or that they're not all. These are things that have been said countless times by Elijah. So it's like, yeah, close, but no cigar, because the diversity of white humanity is something that he spoke about. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's just a way to make it simple. It's simple good guy, bad guy shit that plays in the movie. And it's pretty corny. You know what I mean? So, like, he's being enlightened in Mecca, and then you saw Elijah coughing and going, you know, and all of that. But, you know, not really that. The truth is that politically, NOI had different goals than what Malcolm X wanted to achieve. Malcolm X wanted to make a black militant movement and with solidarity, you know, throughout the diaspora. Again, just like Marcus Garvey. And Elijah Muhammad, that's not the NOI was doing. They're with the diaspora, but they're segregating. And whatever diaspora of original people want to come with them, they come along. But they are segregationists. They are segregating themselves willfully. That's not what Malcolm X was doing. So a lot of his stuff was going to be contradiction. You know what I mean? Just like the Father. They're not teaching the black man is God, as in you right now, right? Then, you know, when Fard comes and he, you know, tells you, shows the guys that are, I don't know. I'm not going to figure out the religion, but it's all religion shit, you know, for me. But that's why, you know. Still a great movie though, because Denzel's, you know, all-time GOAT level. Mm-hmm. yeah. It's convenient to leave out things, you know what I mean? That's always been convenient to leave out things, you know. I don't see everybody as an evil William O'Neill Judas immediately, but when you learn more about Spike Lee, he never really was in tune, you know, with the people like that. You know what I mean? Always a little out, always a little disconnected, you know. But with that said, if anybody has any questions, we're at the end of this class. Email me. If you got my number, contact me, text me, whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah, well, it's glad Denzel is, arguably the greatest actor of all time. You know what I mean? You could argue that. You really could argue that, A lot of great actors that are white, they got to do all the roles and have all the skills and, got to have all the diverse stuff. And yet still Denzel, he can rank with them, and be argued GOAT. So, another chip in the tool belt, of his legacy. But with that said, everybody build, remain righteous though, and I guess don't sell out on me. You know what I mean? Peace.